But Napoleon Hill reveals the most ignored biblical principle of wealth. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly attract success while others struggle despite working just as hard? What if I told you that an ancient biblical principle holds the key to unlocking wealth, fulfilling relationships, and extraordinary achievement in every area of your life? Are you ready to discover the secret that transformed an ordinary journalist into America's most influential success philosopher? A secret so powerful, yet so simple, that it's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. Today, we're diving into the revolutionary wisdom of Napoleon Hill and the biblical principle that changed everything for him, and could change everything for you. This isn't just another motivational talk. This is about the fundamental law that governs all achievement, a principle so unwavering that Hill built his entire philosophy around it. You will always, inevitably, harvest exactly what you plant. Imagine having complete control over your future results. Imagine knowing with absolute certainty that your efforts today are creating your reality tomorrow. What would you do differently? How would you live if you truly understood that every thought, every action, every habit is a seed with the power to transform your destiny? The answer to these questions could be worth millions to you, in dollars, relationships, and life satisfaction. Are you ready to discover what Napoleon Hill knew that most people never will? Napoleon Hill was born in a one-room cabin in Wyalusing, County, Virginia, in 1883. His humble beginnings in the rural American South would later inform his philosophy about the value of diligence and perseverance. After his mother's death when he was just 9 years old, Hill's life was challenging. However, his destiny changed dramatically when his father remarried a woman who recognized young Napoleon's potential and encouraged his education. As a young man working as a reporter, Hill's life transformed when he met his mentor, steel magnate Andrew Carnegie, who commissioned him to interview over 500 successful Americans and compile a philosophy of success. For over 20 years, Hill interviewed titans of industry including Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, Henry Ford, Charles M. Schwab, and many others. What distinguished Hill was his extraordinary ability to extract universal principles from these diverse success stories and communicate them with simplicity and impact. His book, Think and Grow Rich, published during the Great Depression in Taosi, 1937, has sold over 100 million copies worldwide. Unlike many motivational speakers who relied on temporary emotional highs, Hill offered substantive principles that produced lasting change. His influence extends through generations of thought leaders including W. Clement Stone, Earl Nightingale, Jim Rohn, and countless others who consider him the grandfather of personal development. Until his passing in 1970, Hill remained dedicated to the idea that success is something you attract by the person you become. The principle of sowing and reaping stands as one of the most foundational teachings across Judeo-Christian scripture. While most explicitly stated in Galatians 6:7-8, "Do not be deceived, God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." This concept appears throughout both Old and New Testaments. In its original context, this teaching served multiple purposes: as practical agricultural wisdom in an agrarian society, as a moral framework for understanding consequences, and as a spiritual principle regarding divine justice. The ancient Hebrews understood this concept intimately through their agricultural experience. They recognized that the quality of seeds, the timing of planting, the care given to growing crops, and patience during development all directly influenced their harvest. This natural law became a powerful metaphor that extended beyond farming into all aspects of life. In Jewish and early Christian understanding, this principle wasn't simply about immediate consequences, but about the natural order established by God, a system where actions inevitably produce corresponding results. What makes this principle so enduring is its observable truth across cultures and time periods. Every agricultural civilization independently discovered this same pattern, that outcomes are directly tied to inputs. The brilliance of biblical teaching was in extending this observable natural law into the moral, ethical, and spiritual dimensions. of human experience. It established a framework where personal responsibility becomes paramount, as each person participates in creating their future through present actions. This ancient wisdom formed the perfect foundation for Napoleon Hill's modern philosophy of personal development. Napoleon Hill's genius lay in his ability to extract this ancient principle from its religious context and apply it as a universal law of achievement accessible to all Americans, regardless of faith background. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, Hill would often say. This statement perfectly encapsulates his secular reframing of sowing and reaping, positioning it as a natural law rather than strictly divine judgment. Hill's interpretation centered on what he called the law of cosmic habit force, emphasizing that our daily thoughts, beliefs, and actions function as seeds that inevitably yield corresponding harvests in our lives. You are the master of your destiny. You can influence, direct, and control your own environment. You can make your life what you want it to be, he famously stated. This perspective placed the power firmly in the hands of the individual. Unlike some prosperity teachings that emphasize divine blessing alone, Hill's philosophy balanced spiritual principles with personal responsibility. What distinguished Hill's teaching was his emphasis on the compound effect of persistent thoughts and definite purpose. Effort only fully releases its reward after a person refuses to quit, he taught. This insight transformed the biblical principle into a practical formula for success. He observed that most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a short time, but drastically underestimate what they can achieve with years of focused, intentional mental cultivation. Through countless lectures across America, Hill helped people understand that extraordinary lives don't emerge from single dramatic actions, but from ordinary disciplines maintained over time. The harvest of success, he taught, was available to anyone willing to plant the right mental seeds with patience and consistency. Napoleon Hill recognized that truly successful lives required attention to multiple dimensions, not just financial prosperity. He identified 5 crucial territories where the principle of sowing and reaping manifests most powerfully in American life. In the financial realm, Hill taught that wealth creation begins with how we think about money. Riches begin in the form of thought, he observed. The amount is limited only by the person in whose mind the thought is put into motion. He encouraged Americans to develop a definite purpose, create detailed plans, and establish mastermind alliances, planting seeds that would grow into financial independence. In relationships, Hill emphasized quality over quantity. It is literally true that you can succeed best and quickest by helping others to succeed, became one of his most quoted insights. He taught that meaningful connections require genuine investment, offering value first, maintaining absolute integrity, and approaching relationships with a spirit of service. The harvest of strong relationships, he noted, often arrived when most needed during life's inevitable challenges. Regarding health and well-being, Hill was equally practical. Long before wellness became a cultural focus, he advocated for treating the body as the vehicle for achievement. The body is a chemical laboratory. All emotions are chemically incompatible with the chemicals of the cells needed for good health, he would remind audiences. Simple disciplines like positive emotional states, proper nutrition, and adequate rest were seeds that yielded energy, longevity, and quality of life. Perhaps most distinctive was Hill's emphasis on mental development. You can think your way into or out of almost any circumstance, he stated. In a distinctly American tradition of self-improvement, he advocated eliminating negative thoughts, fostering creative imagination, and harnessing the subconscious mind. He recommended daily autosuggestion and visualization, noting that these disciplines alone could transform a person's circumstances within years. Finally, Hill addressed spiritual growth, not through dogmatic religious prescription, but through encouraging higher awareness, service to others, and connecting to infinite intelligence. No one is defeated until defeat has been accepted as reality, he advised, recognizing that internal growth inevitably produces external results across all areas of life. one of Napoleon Hill's most valuable contributions to American success. Philosophy was his honest treatment of timing in the sowing and reaping process. Unlike get-rich-quick promoters, Hill acknowledged the natural delay between planting and harvesting. A goal is a dream with a deadline, he taught, but also emphasized that some harvests require sustained effort. This insight addressed the fundamental challenge that causes many Americans to abandon positive habits before seeing results: the invisible, early growth happening beneath the surface. Hill often illustrated this principle through stories of persistence familiar to his American audiences. Before success comes in any man's life, he is sure to meet with much temporary defeat, and perhaps some failure, he cautioned. When defeat overtakes a man, the easiest and most logical thing to do is to quit. That is exactly what the majority of men do. He understood that early in any growth process, whether building a business, developing a skill, or improving a relationship, progress often remains invisible to outside observers. This period requires what he called faith in the future, trust in natural processes that unfold according to their own timeline rather than our preferences. What separated Hill from many contemporary success teachers was his emphasis on persistence as a cornerstone of achievement. Persistence is to the character of man as carbon is to steel, he insisted. This perspective reframes the waiting period not as wasted time, but as essential developmental space where character forms. The most valuable harvests, Hill taught, often require the longest growing seasons. His teachings encouraged Americans to adopt long-term thinking in a culture increasingly focused on immediate results, reminding them that the most valuable achievements often come to those patient enough to nurture growth through multiple seasons. The brilliance of Napoleon Hill's teaching lies in its practicality. He transformed abstract principles into concrete daily practices accessible to Americans from all walks of life. Central to his approach was the power of autosuggestion, what he called planting seeds in the subconscious mind with intention. Hill advised writing specific personal statements of purpose, reading them aloud twice daily with emotion, and visualizing their fulfillment as already achieved. This practice creates what he termed a burning desire that moves individuals toward their desired future. Financial application begins with Hill's famous concept of going the extra mile, delivering more value than expected in all professional endeavors. This principle, when consistently applied, creates recognition and opportunities regardless of economic conditions. In relationships, Hill recommended developing habits like controlling negative emotions, practicing empathy, and what he called accurate thinking, avoiding gossip, hasty judgments, and negative influences. These small seeds consistently planted yield rich harvests of deeper connections with the right people. For personal development, Hill created the definite chief aim exercise, writing a clear statement of exactly what you want to achieve, by when, and what you're willing to give in return. Over time, this modest investment grows dramatically into powerful subconscious programming. He similarly advocated small, sustainable improvements in thought habits rather than dramatic but unsustainable changes. Begin wherever you are and with whatever you have, he advised, for better conditions will follow better service. Perhaps most powerfully, Hill taught the practice of maintaining a gratitude journal, recording daily blessings and lessons learned. This habit creates what he called a mental attitude of expectancy that accelerates growth by conditioning the mind for success. Through these practical applications, Hill demonstrated that extraordinary results come not from occasional heroic efforts, but from simple disciplines practiced consistently. While Napoleon Hill's interpretation of sowing and reaping offers powerful wisdom, honest examination requires acknowledging its limitations and potential misapplications in American culture. Critics note that an overemphasis on mental attitude can sometimes minimize structural barriers that genuinely limit opportunity. Hill's philosophy emerged during America's industrial age, when entrepreneurial opportunity seemed more universally accessible. In today's more complex economy, factors like systemic inequities, access to education, and starting economic position significantly impact one's ability to reap, regardless of how diligently they sow. The principle also faces challenges. In contexts where cause and effect relationships aren't straightforward, some individuals faithfully apply Hill's teachings yet face setbacks due to factors beyond their control: health crises, economic downturns, or family emergencies that disrupt even the most disciplined efforts. Without nuanced application, the principle risks implying that all suffering results from poor mental attitude, potentially breeding judgment rather than compassion. Additionally, some critics observe that American culture's individualistic interpretation can neglect the communal dimensions present in the original biblical teaching, which emphasized sowing into community as much as personal advancement. Perhaps, most importantly, Hill himself acknowledged the principle's mysterious timing. When riches begin to come, they come so quickly, in such great abundance, that one wonders where they have been hiding all those years, he would say, recognizing that harvest seasons often arrive after prolonged periods of apparent inactivity. The wisdom lies in continuing to plant good seeds despite occasional disappointing delays. These limitations don't invalidate the principle, but invite a more sophisticated application, one that balances personal responsibility with realistic expectations and compassion for oneself and others when results don't match effort. The most mature practitioners of Hill's philosophy embrace both its empowering truth and its necessary qualifications. Napoleon Hill's greatest contribution to American personal development may be his ability to bridge ancient wisdom with modern application, creating a philosophy that transcends both religious and secular boundaries. The principle of sowing and reaping, in Hill's hands, becomes not merely a spiritual truth, but a practical framework for navigating life's complexities with intention and wisdom. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve, he often said. This simple statement encapsulates the heart of his message, that we participate actively in creating our future through present thoughts and choices. Perhaps what makes Hill's interpretation so enduring is its balanced perspective. Unlike purely materialistic success philosophies that focus exclusively on external results, Hill emphasized character development as the foundation for lasting achievement. If you cannot do great things, do small things in a great way, insisted. This insight shifts focus from merely acquiring possessions to developing qualities: persistence, integrity, definite purpose, and service that naturally attract opportunity and growth. As we navigate an increasingly complex and rapidly changing world, the timeless wisdom of sowing and reaping offers a stabilizing perspective. It reminds us that despite technological and cultural shifts, certain principles remain constant. Thoughts are causative and powerful. Small, consistent actions compound over time. Quality input produces quality output. Patience and persistence yield results that quick fixes cannot. Character matters more than technique. These truths, illuminated by Hill's unique ability to communicate with both simplicity and depth, continue to guide seekers of personal growth nearly a century after he first shared them. His legacy invites each of us to examine what mental seeds we're planting today and to cultivate the patience and discipline needed to nurture them to full harvest.